So again, this is just sort of a quick overview of the Makarov. One of my favorite pistols, just because it's so durable and so cheap. This one was bought by a friend of mine for about 125 bucks a couple years ago. They're a little bit more than that now. Definitely think they're worth $125. As far as the newer prices, I've seen them go upwards of $300. Probably stretching it a little bit there, unless you're a collector. We know from the serial number that this one was built in 1981. It was built in Bulgaria, and it was imported. And that makes it a collector's item, similar to owning an AK or a FAL or some imported military-style firearm. So again, the Bulgarian Makarov. And we're taking a look at our targets here away from the range, so it's a little quieter. Again, we were shooting this Bulgarian Makarov, which is a 9x18 caliber pistol. I'm really a fan of these. I think of them like a pistol version of the AK-47. Very simple to use, very reliable. It's got a couple of features that you might want. Not a lot of features you don't want to bother with. Real nice pistols. So let's take a look at how we did with them. This is the target from 5 yards, and this is the target from 10 yards. And I shot them a day apart from each other, which I don't know if that means much. But first off, we used this Hornady, and this is or actually the first one we shot was the Russian stuff, the 9x18, and that was in this target. And the first two shots, well, the first shot was down here, the second shot rose way up to here, and as I mentioned, that's because I unfortunately fell into the problem that I find with going back and forth between double action only pistols and double action single action pistols. So I sort of explained it the other day at the range when it happened, but here's basically what went down. I shot this first round and it was fine, and I shot that in a double action, and I'm going to go ahead and just remove that magazine and make sure it's empty. So double action meaning I pulled the trigger, the hammer went back, and then the second, the double action of the trigger is that it released the hammer and fired the round. When that happened, the slide brought the hammer back, and now I was in single action mode. And many pistols are built this way. Again, I'm used to shooting a double action, which gives me a consistent long trigger pull. So when I came to get my sights back on the target, I had started to take up some of the slack in the trigger. Of course, there was no slack, so the trigger was pulled and the shot went way high, way up there. Obviously, I can make excuses all day, but the reason for that was because I normally shoot with my thumb sort of out here, and because the safety is on the slide, when that slide moved, it just knocked my thumb out of the way, which just startled me more than anything. It made my brain think about my thumb and not what I was doing, and that was just enough of a distraction that shot got pulled really high. Now in real life, that's not too bad, but it's not something we strive for, is to make a miss that's 8 inches or 10 inches from where we're trying to aim. But after that, I recuperated okay. I knew it was in single action mode. I was aware of the safety moving, so I just went ahead and shot again, and it did pretty decent. Real nice group, basically a touching one big ragged hole, which is what we always look for in a group. Next up, I shot the Hornady hollow points. These are 95 grain hollow points made in the U.S. and they did okay. They shot this group here. I think we could have a little ruler here, so we're probably talking a 2-inch group. Next up was the Winchester, made in the Czech Republic. And this is just full ball ammo. Again, 95 grains though, and it did real well. It shot this nice little group, stayed inside the black, just like we'd like to see a target. Then I shot the Hungarian ammo, and it did fine. Let me see if I can see a grains on this one. 93 grains, so just a hair smaller than the other two. And I didn't do too bad. I'm going to put my thumb over this one because that was the one that came up from that first group. And what I had was 1, 2, 3 went back into the same hole. So Or actually, I think it was 1, 2, 3, and those two basically went into the same hole, and that's all we can ask for when we're target shooting. So I did okay at the 5 yards, but I didn't do perfect, and I didn't want to shoot a lot of ammo, so I just shot 3 rounds. But then the next day I went back and I shot basically the same arrangement at 10 yards. So this was done at 15 feet, this was done at 10 yards, so that was 30 feet. Again, shooting the 9x18 Russian Makarov ammo, it did okay. It stayed within a fist. The spread was about 3 inches, so can't complain about that grouping. With the hollow point, Hornady did much better than the first day. Actually, the group was about the same size, maybe just a hair smaller, but I brought it back over onto the black, into the bullseye, which is where we want it. The Winchester performed a little more poorly, but again, we were twice the distance, so I'm not going to complain. It was still within the size of a fist, and that's usually what we're looking for with a defensive type of pistol. Or just at 2 inches with the Winchester. And then last up was that Hungarian again, and it did a pretty good job of staying inside the, keeping a tight group. And again, we're under 2 inches there. So I'd have to say that even with the sight picture on these, which a lot of people I'm sure would say leaves something to be desired, that back sight is basically just a tiny notch and then a very hard to see little blade front sight. And that can be kind of tough. I'm trying to do this backwards and upside down in the camera right now, but you can see that just not as obvious a sight picture as some of the other videos we've done with very visible sight pictures that we got on our Glocks. So this was not the ultimate shooting test, of course. You know, this is just one shooter under, you know, varying circumstances, shooting at 2 different distances. But I think hopefully it does show that the little Makarov can hold its own, and even with you know, coming to it fairly cold, I was able to keep pretty decent groups, definitely defensive groups. I don't know if I'd call it a bullseye pistol necessarily, but I don't want to discount it because I probably could have done much better if I would have gone out for a few days and practiced with this first. I guess I'll bring the sheath over, or the holster over, just because we can, and it should be a little clearer here than it was out at the range. The holster's pretty decent. It's crude. It's not exactly the highest amount of engineering here, but it's efficient, and it does what a lot of the communist stuff did. It does its job. So let's take a look at the outside first. We've got a couple of straps here, obviously, for the belt. They're riveted in very well. They're sewn in very well, made with decent leather, so I suspect those are going to last quite a while. You notice I've probably never worn this on a belt. I'm sure no one has. It's not a carry pistol for me, and if I was going to carry it, I definitely wouldn't carry it in this military-style holster. But it's nice to have for storage. Next, it comes with a little cleaning rod slash tool, and it looks like the tool will help us maybe get the grip off and, you know, do some cleaning and whatnot. And that tool just goes onto these 2 little loops on the back here, and handy to have that with you. Difference on some of the modern holsters is these are made out of plastic nowadays, and a little bit lighter and a little bit less abrasive. I imagine if this jabbed into your leg, you'd want the plastic style. It has a pouch here for a spare magazine, which is handy, and the holster itself is a little interesting. Let's grab that pistol, and we'll insert it here into the holster. We've got a couple of things going on. We've got this strap here, which is just going to be our retention strap for the flap, so we'll ignore that for now. Then we've got this other little strap, and I don't know how well it's going to show up in the video, but inside of here, that little strap is basically to help us pull the pistol back out of this holster. So I'm going to insert it into the holster there, and you can see that it's totally enclosed. There's a wedge back here that's sewn into it that keeps it out, which is nice. You know, some of the pancake style holsters are hard to reholster. This one, being sewn in a triangle shape, allows you to reholster very easily, but any amount of ease from the shape is taken away by this dang strap here, because it seems like, again, this isn't a pistol that I use every day, and it's definitely not a holster that I use every day, but if you put this in just a hair wrong, you get that strap to go over the barrel and it just won't go in without, you know, some assistance. But what it's supposed to be doing there is the strap is coming down right in front of the trigger guard here, and as it goes in, the strap is, any slack in the strap is taken up, and you see that it got sucked in there. And now the idea is that if I want to remove that pistol, it can be kind of tedious to get in here and hold on to it. So when it's in there all the way, you can just pull on this strap, and you see that it pulls out of the holster with that strap. So I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. It seems as though they had to add that strap in order to make their holster efficient, but on the other hand, maybe they made their holster this way knowing they were going to put the strap in. Obviously there's no way to know. Pretty certain this was a Russian design though, and then the Bulgarians just literally copied it or used it because maybe there wasn't a better way, who knows. So basically you got this pistol in there, and then there's this large flap. Got a couple of Bulgarian factory marks. It's going to flip over the top. It's going to totally cover the pistol, which is great. From rain and dust and dirt, it does a good job of keeping it covered. And it even covers the magazine, so the magazine's really not going to come out unless the holster's damaged. It just uses the metal stud with a slit in the leather, so that's the only thing really holding the leather strap on. But for storage, I've never had a problem with any of these. I imagine with use that this could get a little worn, and since it's a rivet here, it might be a little difficult, but I'm sure any leathersmith, any competent leathersmith could fix one of these. Anyway, this is the holster then for the Bulgarian Makarov. Fine pistol, good shooter. If you can find one cheap, highly recommend you buy one. Great fun to shoot, fairly accurate. As far as a defensive pistol, I think it might be a little bit crude. The features are nice. It does have a slide stop. It'll stay open on the last mag, or on an empty magazine. If I put in an empty magazine, you'll see that it stays back. The European style mag release, a lot of people don't like that, but it can actually be pretty fast. I mean, they didn't use them for so many years because they were difficult. They're fairly easy to deal with. It's got the decocker in the back here. So once you've got your hammer back, because it is a fairly sensitive trigger, if you wanted to drop the hammer, instead of putting your finger there, pulling the trigger, and then slowly dropping the hammer onto a live round, what you can do instead is just push that safety on. Once you've engaged the safety, you've also decocked the firearm safely. So that's a handy feature, especially in such an old pistol. That was a feature we didn't see here in the US for many, many years after these were made. Okay, I guess I can show how it comes apart for cleaning. This handguard, or the trigger guard, excuse me, will just kind of pivot down out of place. So again, making sure that it's empty, leave the slide back. You pull down that trigger guard, and then you just sort of push back even further than it would normally go, and then pull it forward, and you've got it apart. The slide contains the safety, and you basically clean that out with a toothbrush or Q-tips. Not much to it. The barrel is much different than the Glocks and stuff that we see that have a free barrel. The barrel is connected to the frame, chamber here, and there's this massive spring. It's a blowback, so it just operates with a giant spring. You can see all the trigger stuff is retained in the frame, and again, you'd clean that with a Q-tip or a brush. To assemble it again, you just sort of push that spring up into the front of the slide. And I'm going to push the barrel up through the hole, and then as I bring it back, it's just going to kind of naturally fall into place there. And as I let it go forward on the rails, it just sort of assembles itself. The spring tension brings the trigger guard back up into place, and it's back together. So again, a pistol that very simple to operate, very simple to take apart, very simple to make, very simple to maintain. A lot of benefits to an older military style pistol like this one. And again, that's the Bulgarian Makarov. There's lots of different versions of them out there. Russian, Romanian, probably, I don't even know, Chinese. There's probably a lot of them out there. Wouldn't be surprised if the Germans had one too. Not an expert on them. I just like them quite a bit, so I'm a fan of them, and thought I'd do a quick video introduction.